Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Natalie and Samson's as of yet untitled podcast, also known as the what is it called? The cafeteria voice channel? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what it's
Also known
called.
as the cafeteria voice channel of the Incandescent Reviews Discord server, where we had a 9-hour conversation that never stopped and turned into a YouTube podcast. So, welcome to the show. We will talk about existence and society and our lives and hopeless romanticism and just whatever has continued to flow out of the recesses of this 9-hour conversation that happened one night when we were half awake.
Yeah, so we are here with my boy Samson, my dude, my bro, my guy, super cool dude. Basically, he thinks that he's not well read enough, but every time he talks about books, I'm always like, wow, okay, I need to read more. And he's got really, a lot of really cool thoughts. And so we decided that yes, we're doing a podcast. And it was also at the expense of everyone else who came in and listened to us talk for 9 hours, saying, hey, you guys should do a podcast. So here we are.
Natalie's a really amazing spoken word poet, artist, generally very, very cool person. At one point, we were very desperate for people to join our teams. We sent out lots of blasts.
We were very desperate.
And for some reason, Natalie applied. But you know what? It's very cool. There's a lot to be appreciated. The magazine is really amazing. It's like I consider myself like incredibly lucky that the magazine has brought us together and given us all these moments and this podcast. And we hope that you will enjoy this podcast as well.
Welcome to 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., a podcast by Samson Jong and Natalie Ryan. We'll have a real intro next time, we promise.
So there's this literary magazine. It's called the Incandescent Review. This magazine goes to great efforts to organize team bonding activities. So there was a team bonding activity one Thursday night. It was like a movie night. Yeah, that was what it was, like a Netflix watch party at like 8 o'clock, I think, when it was supposed to start. I hopped into the voice channel. I was like, all right, we will wait for people to come. We will set up a Netflix thing and we will have a good time. And I wait for 10 minutes and no one shows up and I'm like, all right, farewell. So I drop out of the channel and I did some other things, and then some amount of time later I come back and Natalie's in the channel with no one else.
I'm just sitting there alone.
And I was like, all right, let me join and see what's up. And then Ariel joins in eventually. Chief executive director of our magazine, founder, big girl. Comes in and then she's like, oh, what happened? And we were like, no one showed up, so we're just chilling.
You and I, we had burned through so many topics while it was just us talking, and this was only in the first few hours. We were jumping around from philosophy and existentialism, but then also just really weird stuff. And then Ariel had showed up, and you brought up the Platonic sluttery thing, and I remember it very distinctly because Ariel did not say the word slut. She would refuse to say the word slut.
Okay, which is actually an interesting point that I didn't get to on that night. But yeah, so for context, so this is a blog post that I wrote and posted.
Segment 1, Samson's Platonic sluttery. Samson is also a narcissist who uses his own covers as theme music.
I just am good at getting vulnerable with people. This was a skill that I just happened to build before other normal social skills. Growing up, I did not speak English until I was 5. So in middle school and high school, I ended up having to learn these things deliberately, right? It's what do other people say in these situations? Aha, this is what I should say. But then, I think one consequence of this was that, when it came to listening to people, when it came to getting into, more personal, maybe, more uncomfortable topics, obviously, it's hard to talk to someone about, anything, something that's vulnerable or personal. But to me, it's I was already uncomfortable with everything else, so it didn't make a difference. I was okay, this is, something that I can build comfort in and build my skills in. So I kind of went about doing this, in middle school, I went to a public school in Harlem, as well as that compounding with it just being obnoxious middle schoolers. So that was like a very surface level kind of social environment where we communicated by roasting each other and our teachers. Somehow I like made that work. Like I was like student government president and such. There's this kind of idea of like you build like a facade that you work towards, right? It's like fake it till you make it, but at like a very practical level. So I built this kind of like surface level New York obnoxious middle schooler persona up. And then went to Andover, went to my high school where, it has a reputation of like big blue nice, where like it's a boarding school, or, like my teachers are like my house counselors in my dorm. Like I can talk to them at night, and it's this very, very different culture where you generally mean what you're saying, right? Or you're like talking about things that you care about. And I was like, oh, cool. I can like talk to people and they will say things that they care about. There was one time I was just like walking with someone after we did something. We just like went to this like deli place, and we just like chilled there, and we had like worked together in clubs and stuff. So she was like kind of a friend, just someone that you like see around at school. But we were just chilling there, and then suddenly we were like diagramming her like insecurities and like ambitions in like vectors, and like figuring out like what dot products of vectors meant. And it was specific. It was like about like success and like excellence and all these things. Is like, look, you're just dotting vectors against each other. And like, how did we get there from like not knowing each other? I don't know, but like it was just this night, and we just spent like until our like curfew time, because it was a boarding school. We just spent like there in that like deli cafe place. And just like talked about it, and somehow this is just a thing that I was able to, did not feel like particularly strange or uncomfortable doing. And then the other part of like this platonic slut thing is after that, like, we would continue like to see each other, and she would like wave to me and I would wave to her. And that was like the extent of our relationship. Like we were not like any like close friends afterwards or anything. It's just a strange set of skills, right? Normally people either are like struggle with both parts of like a relationship, right? Vulnerability and just like normal social behavior. Or if there's one thing that they're good at, it will be like the social part, right? And then that's usually a prerequisite for being able to reach a point of trust and vulnerability. But I went the other way, and like I built like trust and vulnerability skills before social skills, which more than like I still don't think I'm like skilled in any particular way. And this was something that San Halim, who's like a journalist and turned app developer, said, was that people want to share, people want to get personal. Like everyone has their like bottled up feelings and thoughts and over analyses. There's just not that many places to share it, right? So if you just are someone willing to listen, which he often was as a journalist, right? People will just share way too much information, right? So I feel like that was just, I don't know. I was comfortable, and this just like created a sense of comfort that other people like thought as somewhat exceptional, right? And labeled me as a good listener. I enjoyed this as well, right? And I actively pursued these kind of engagements. So I ended up having like many people who I just had like deep conversations with, who were not then like close friends afterwards. And so one day, like one of my like friends, she and her friend just text me in all caps, platonic slut, with no context. Just one night, I'm just walking, I'm just chilling, and I see two texts, and they both just say platonic slut in all caps, and I'm like, what?
You're like, should I be insulted by this? Like, what are you
like, am I being threatened? What's happening? So I text one, and I'm like, what? And then she's like, yeah, this is it's you. You're a platonic slut. And then I was like, what? and then they like explained it. And then and this friend that was the president of the of our newspaper, we didn't like hang out outside of the newspaper other than just like coincidence, right? But when we did, it'd be like good conversation. And so she was like, yeah, this friend of yours is your platonic hookup. All the other people that you have like these good conversations with and leave behind are your like, you have like platonic one night stands with them. Like they're also they're your former platonic hookups. And it's like, wow, this makes sense. So I like wrote up this blog post and posted it. It's titled Platonic Slut, all lowercase, and it's this exposition on how I am a platonic slut. So Ariel sees this blog post and comes and he's like, I was reading your blog. The moment she was like, I found this interesting blog post, like immediately, whenever somebody says that, I know which one they're talking about. So I'm like explaining, right? And then Ariel says something, and it turns out she has been under the impression this whole time that like slut here refers to like actual like sexual activity. And
Yeah.
I guess she just thinks this is like that I'm just like a very promiscuous person or something. And I'm like, no.
She was so scared. She was so worried because she's like, "What are you two talking about? Like, what are you talking about?" And I was like, "Ariel, honey, it's okay. I promise you, it's not."
Yeah,
And
we're not corrupting your good Christian Discord server.
Some of us wonder if you wanna die.
Segment 2, Natalie's Existential Platonic Sluttery.
You wanna die.
When I was 6 years old, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, and essentially what I was told by everyone who saw me in a very short window of time was that I was probably going to die or be paralyzed or something. It would be bad. It would be really bad. Originally, they thought it was a brain tumor, then they thought it was a spinal tumor, and then they found out it is a little-known illness called Guillain-Barré syndrome, and essentially what it does is it's an ascending paralysis up your spinal cord, and you slowly lose feeling of all of your limbs until you either recover or you don't. And when I was 6, I was going from being able to walk and talk and do all of these things to suddenly I was slurring words, and I couldn't speak, and I couldn't stand, and I couldn't carry myself anywhere until I was hospitalized. And basically, I was told countless times over the span of the, 6, 7, 8 days I spent in the hospital that I was going to be lucky if I survived it. And so from a very young age, I knew that I was going to die, and I knew that it wasn't really a promise. Like, it wasn't really a matter of if, it was a matter of when, which to children and teenagers generally have this sort of air of invincibility. They think because these things haven't happened to them, it's just not going to happen. And it takes a lot for life to kind of prove that it will eventually end for these people who go through this process of learning and growing. But for me, it was like I had expedited shipping on maturity, which wasn't ideal. It made me a very anxious person. It made me a very emotional person. And so ever since a really young age, I've always wanted to be friends with everyone. And I mean everyone. Like I used to go to like McDonald's that would have like the playgrounds inside of them, because I was like, wow, I can eat chicken nuggets and also go down a slide. I'm living. And that sort of stuff. Like I physically would refuse to leave until I had made a friend with someone. Like I've always been seeking this weird personal connection with other people, and so I'm a platonic slut in that sense. It's like I just seek to have so many connections in so many areas because I know what it feels like to be ostracized. Following my hospital stay and going into elementary school was really hard because I had generalized anxiety disorder, and I would have panic attacks because I was 6 and had generalized anxiety disorder. People didn't want to hang around me because I was small and sensitive and very scared of everything. I still tried my hardest to make friends, and once I did make a friend, they knew everything about me, and I was open and honest about as much as I could be. But as I got older, I found that it became something that drew people in instead of pushed them out. Like once I got to middle school, like if there were new students, I would get called down and I would give them a tour, and I was like their starter friend. I was like a temporary friend, like a single serving friend. I was essentially everyone was friends with me at least one time, but that didn't mean they stayed friends with me. My problem with my platonic sluttery now is that like all of the people who I have been friends with, I still consider to be very dear to me, even if they've moved on, even if they don't talk to me anymore, even if they've left me in like really bad ways. I still look at them and I still value them in the same way that I did at the height of our friendship. There have been people who take advantage of that, and I definitely have tried to set those boundaries more as I've gotten older. I platonically hook up with a ton of people, but I can't, like, get over the emotional part of it. Like, I can't just let it go and just be like, okay, that's in the past. Like, I still have friends where I haven't talked to them in years, but if they texted me right now, I would be immediately 100% of my attention would be towards them. So yeah, I'm definitely a platonic slut, but my story is very sad. and yeah, I'm a platonic slut with commitment issues and also letting go issues. I think part of the reason that I struggle to let go in so many regards is because as much as things in my life have been bad, I still am very much a hopeless romantic, and I'm still very much an optimist, even if that will hurt me, because it's easier to have faith that things will be good instead of a knowledge that they will be bad. In a lot of my platonic hookups, I have found that I fall into a potential love with the person. It's not that I'm 100% like in love with them, but it's this like antagonizing fear that just grips me. And it's like, if you get any closer to this person, this is going to be bad for you and your heart, because you like sometimes you just talk to people, sometimes you get to know people, and you're like, this is very dangerous, because I know that if I were to be more involved with you, if we were to be closer, there's a very good chance that I could have feelings for you, and I don't want to deal with that. One of my best friends, we were in 8th grade, and we had never like talked to each other in the halls at middle school, but then one day we were at an amusement park together for literally 14 hours, and the people who invited us just kind of abandoned us and said, hey, you two go be friends. And there were definitely like these moments where it felt like he and I had never not been friends. It felt like we had always known each other. He hugged me at one point in the night, and I was like, okay, this is bad. This is so bad. This is so bad. Because if you give me any more of a reason to like you, I'm going to be heartbroken, and I can't deal with that. So I think a lot of my platonic hookups I've held on to because I idealize whatever friendship or relationship I could have with these people, even though I know that it's not necessarily something that is feasible for me emotionally or for them emotionally. I do generally open up with the whole, hey, I have an autoimmune disease thing. Since there's no cure for what I have, there is a chance it could come back, and I just like to give people the option of an easy out. Like, if they don't want to get attached, cool, don't get attached. That's my latest overanalysis, is that potential love has killed so many possible friendships of mine because I just can't deal with my own emotions and their weight.
Farmer Jim hums when he's all alone. He may imagine you heard any news.
Segment 3, Kierkegaard's Forever Loves.
Something that I search for personally is like someone to be like a forever thing, or to be a long-term thing, because with my experience, like, life is very difficult and life doesn't give you a lot of forevers, and I still very much hope for and buy into like finding someone to spend your life with, even though that's all traditional and forever isn't realistic. And I know that, and the very logical side of my brain doesn't like that I think in quantifying forever, but it is something that I do, because the sheer inherent romanticism of having someone who loves you through all of your changes, knowing that you are at your core a person who is lovable unconditionally no matter what ups and downs you're facing, that I feel is something that people seek constantly. The way that they seek it may vary, but I feel like that is a lot of different things can be boiled down to this search for wanting to be loved no matter who you are.
It's like a very like foundational validation, right? It's like just validation for your existence. If you want to get into a bit of a light bit of existentialism, is like Kierkegaard's idea of like leap of faith. Kierkegaard's whole framework for existentialism, which was actually created as like a justification for Christianity, for Christian faith. He basically has a very like confusingly written book called Despair is the Sickness unto Death, where his concept of despair is not knowing what the purpose of your existence is, not knowing why you're here, not knowing what you're supposed to do, how to justify your existence. You can despair by not being aware that you do not know the nature of your existence, and then as you rise up, you become more and more aware. You suffer more and more because of this awareness. You despair more and more. And ultimately, you reach demonic despair, which is in full recognition that not that life is meaningless or that existence is meaningless, but that you will never know, right? Like, you are trapped in your mortal subjectivity. You will never ever know what like the larger meaning is. And then his justification for Christianity for escaping this despair in general is to take a leap of faith, is to blindly, completely irrationally, but fully make a decision, just choose to believe that something is the nature of existence. You just choose to believe that this is meaning, and in that way you've escaped despair. And this is kind of what your like concept of forever reminds me of. It's seeking meaning in existence, right? Especially when when other people feel like they have all the time, right? That their existence is guaranteed. You have like a much sharper sense of existence, more deliberately like seeking meaning, trying to find this in like a forever.
I like listening to you psychoanalyze me, because it makes me feel a little bit more sane when like I can say something and then someone translates it back to me and I'm like, yes, what you said is correct. Yeah, it's kind of comforting knowing that a bunch of people who are revered to be really intelligent also felt the same way.
Mother Earth's love whispered to
Segment 4, Existentialism, Part 2.
feeling, and feeling is real.
Existentialism has definitely been a grounding philosophy for me, where I feel like a lot of philosophies are, they're going places, even like rigorous, like logic based philosophy, like epistemology and stuff. I think these are meant to be foundational, right? These are meant to be very like fundamental philosophies that you build upon, but to me, they feel like abstractions. It's like you're abstract, even though you're trying to analyze knowledge and get to the root of it, like you're abstracting upon it, right? You're adding new frameworks and theories and thoughts, which is valuable, right? Obviously. But existentialism feels like it almost goes the other way in a way that, like, I don't think a lot of other philosophies, or I am not I'm not very well read at all in terms of like philosophies, but I haven't really encountered many others, whereas with existentialism, it was like, it just makes sense. It feels fundamental, it feels like it's diving inward. It feels like it's diving towards the nature of existence and telling you something about it that you can actually build on, that you can actually like apply to everything else.
I like existentialism because I feel like, obviously I'm not going to go out there and say it's like positive, but I don't feel it's as nihilistic or like depressing as other philosophies because, I mean, maybe it's just like where I grew up, there was like, you were either this very religious person or you were very much like nothing matters and everything sucks and life's horrible. And I didn't like that because I was like never raised in any sort of specific religion. Like I was just never raised religious. But then I didn't want to be religious, but I also didn't want to be thinking that life had absolutely no meaning because like I don't feel like so many perfect accidents would have occurred. Like, I don't know. I just like existentialism because I feel like it gives me something that I can look at and say like, hey, I understand that. Like, I feel that, and I'm not going to use the word believe because I feel like it's a really strong word, but it's something that resonates with me in a way that makes me feel a little bit more assured about life and about what life really is or isn't.
Somehow at the end of the day, it manages to almost like manifest as a positive. Which feels weird to say because the whole basis is like in what you don't know. But I think in establishing that this is what you don't know, like it's leaving open the possibility that there is something, right? There is something to be not knowing about that you can like take a leap of faith into, that you can find meaning.
This is one of the first conversation topics that we had during our 9-hour conversation. We went from like, oh hey, what sort of stuff are you interested in? Oh, what do you think about this existential philosophy? So I remember that's something I remember from that night.
This is like the most grounding thing I have, It's like it's hard to dispute. It's like a very core worldview, It's like something that I'm not afraid will be taken away maybe, or not afraid that I don't understand, because you can feel it, right? You kind of feel its existence.
Segment 5, on fear of thunder and many-legged bugs.
Little story, I'm terrified of thunder, and there is thunder outside, and I'm scared of it. So I am, like, very nervous. I'm just scared of loud noises. Like, I hate loud noises. And so the thunder outside is freaking me out. But it's okay.
Is there any story behind that, or is it just, like, something you're afraid of?
Well, actually, there's one weird story, and I have weird snippets of memory, because growing up with, like, anxiety, you don't get a good memory. But, like, the first house I lived in this corner bedroom on the top floor. And so anytime it was really rainy or windy, it would almost like echo around my room. And so it sounded horrible. And there was one day where I was sitting on my bedroom floor watching Robin Hood in my bedroom on this big old block TV, and I was having a great time. And then I started having a panic attack because there was extreme thunderstorms outside, and it looked like all of the trees that were on the street were going to blow away. And so I was like 7, and I was just sitting there like crying. And then so now anytime I hear thunder, I'm just like,
the world is blowing away.
I panic about it a lot.
How do you feel about bugs?
All of my fears are really irrational, but bugs... Okay, this is going to sound so strange, and this is how I justify this fear in my head. Spiders have too many legs to be trustworthy. Like, 8 legs, too many legs. Like, I don't know why, but I look at them and I'm like, you've got too many legs. I don't know what you're getting up to, but you've got too many of them. Some bugs I'm okay with. The weirder the exoskeleton, the worse it is for me. Most bugs, I try if they're in the house, I just try to catch them and then release them because I don't want to murder them. But also, sometimes I don't have a choice. And by don't have a choice, I mean I'm either going to cry about the bug existing in my room or I'm going to kill it. So I've gotten a little bit braver with that. I actually catch spiders under cups now, and I take them outside because I feel badly about murdering them in cold blood. So, yeah. How do you feel about bugs? Do they freak you out?
How do I feel about bugs? Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm not, and I don't want to like overstate. I don't want to like jinx myself, you know, and like come face to face with some like terrifying spider that would just like destroy my like concept of myself or something. But I don't know. I feel like spiders are the I feel like I'm less averse to spiders. Like I feel like they have the right amount of legs. Like there was just this like spider in our car. Like I was on a road trip at one point. I was like, cool, and I just like let it crawl on me, and then just like when we like stopped, I just like kind of put it outside. And I was like, I don't know why. I was just like, yeah, it's like, look at this friendly little guy. But I don't know. I feel like generally I have a reaction. You know, I don't know if it's stronger or weaker than others. I don't know if I'm just like, so I lived in a first-story apartment in New York for a year, and it was infested with cockroaches. Yeah, so I would, you know, every day I came back from school, I had to prepare myself to see like cockroaches scamper before me when I would open the door. And so this like descents, and then also like in the bath, it was like awful. It's not as like gross. I feel like this is a term that like people associate with like bugs, and it makes sense, right? Like bugs are gross, whatever. But it's like, it didn't gross me out, right? It was just like unpleasant. Yeah. You know, I feel like it's like different things. Like I was like, it did not feel grossed out. It was like, I don't want this. This is like not fun to have to deal with cockroaches. But I feel like that desensitized me to some extent. Like I had to learn to like kill bugs, right? And like just like kind of ignore my like discomfort. But it definitely like, it didn't make me less uncomfortable. And there was once like I went back to my dorm room, and there were, do you know what crane flies look like?
It sounds horrific. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so they're like mosquitoes, but huge legs. Yeah, they're mosquitoes, but their legs are just like multiple inch-long segments. And yeah, so I came into my dorm room, and there were just like at least a dozen of them just on various surfaces. And I was like, I don't really want to sleep with them just all over the place. So I spent like 2 hours just like picking them off. But like slowly, like I was afraid to like, I would have to like do it with like a paper or something. Like I'm sure if I just like were able to like step on them or like hit them with my hand, it'd be fine. But they're like they're big things. I'm like, I don't want to touch it. So it took me like 2 hours. Yeah. So I don't know how I feel about bugs. There's some bugs that I'm just like no, like centipedes and like I don't know, millipedes, like these kind of things. Are just like no. I'm good. No, I'm just very good. I'd probably just like freak out. Like I'm just not capable of like, I don't want to imagine it, you know?
Yeah, I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, but with other things, it's like, it's fine. And I had a bio teacher who was like a big fan of bugs, or not like a big, but he would like photograph them, you know, and like when he saw a bug, he like, look at this cool bug. And so I feel like this, like, and then my like girlfriend too is like super into bio, so I feel like this desensitized me, you know? It's like, it's a new lens. It's like, I can appreciate the bug. I can like, look at this like, and now, yeah, I'll see like a very strange, very large mosquito, and I'll be like, that's very cool. It's like, it looks so interesting, and then I kill it. But I don't know. That's my relationship with bugs.
For some reason, 6 legs is fine. 8 legs, too many. Any more than 8, I don't care. It's too much. It's
the caterpillars.
It's bad. Okay, hang on.
Cute.
There are 2 bugs I make exceptions for. Caterpillars and ladybugs, because when I was little, you know, so my Instagram handle that doesn't make sense when people read it. It's my childhood nickname was Natterbug, and it was based on ladybugs. So I have to like those. And then caterpillars at my grandma's house, like, you know all those like military homes that get built like for military bases, and it's like
I think
yeah,
so.
they're all
I
like
think
the
so.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time there, and my grandparents were relatively poor, like, all through my growing up, but, like, the one thing that was really nice about their house, and I don't know why I thought this was so nice when I was, like, 7 to 9 years old, giant stuffed caterpillar, like, and I'm talking, like, this thing was as long as the couch, and that was my favorite thing, so I have to like those, because I would be a hypocrite if I didn't, so.
Yeah, and this actually, like, okay, now I'm thinking, like, you know, how much of this is like, social conditioning, you know, or just like what we're taught, because I feel like I don't know, for some reason, yeah, this is like a socially universal thing, or this is like a, it's a weird term, but like, you know what I mean? It's like within, it's like, it's a socialized thing to not be, to like find ladybugs and caterpillars pleasant, right? And it's because we're told like, you know, whatever, they're good, or like caterpillars turn into butterflies. It's like, if you saw one without having been in like a culture that like labels them pleasant, like, would you have the same reaction as other bugs? Would your instinct be to kill it? Like, that's weird to think about now, because it's like, I would, like, why would I kill a caterpillar? This seems like, I don't know, there's something about that feels wrong. Where does that come from, you know? I don't, like, it doesn't feel like it's something inherent. And then also, like, this is something I haven't looked into, but, like, how did this evolve? You know, why do people feel this, like, reaction to bugs, right? Like, there are many animals that are, like, very dangerous, right? Are bugs, like, especially dangerous? Is there some reason to be averse? I guess because otherwise you'd, like, ignore them, right? You think if there's a small speck and you feel nothing, it's like, you just let them like crawl over you, which like happens to like other animals, right? It's like they're just kind of bugs on them. But
it's a really good question. Like, I don't know why people were just suddenly like, you know what, bugs, disgusting, get them out of here. I don't know what prompted that, and now I kind of want to start reading a bunch of Wikipedia articles on why people feel the way they do. Like, think about it. Like, bugs realistically can't do very much to hurt you, and I know that. But that doesn't mean that I'm not scared of every bug that I see in my room. I don't know why. I feel like the bugs are completely taking over my personal space when I see one on a wall 3 feet away from me.
Well, yeah, as a counterbalance to that, I mean, this is my like hypothesis. Like, as a counterbalance to that rational thought, maybe, right? It's like if you just ignore all if you just let bugs build up, some of them are going to be dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And like, so I don't know, maybe as some sort of counterbalance.
Interlude: revisiting our Platonic hookup.
We had this nice conversation topic, and like very quickly we like lived up to the contents of the topic, and just started talking a lot, and then it was 5 a.m.
and then we had been on the call for 9 hours,
and then it was suddenly 5 a.m. Yeah,
and there were like 3 times where you were like, hey, we should go to bed, and I was like, okay, cool, and we talked for literally like half an hour to an hour longer about whatever, and then like I don't know, it kept happening, and then when it was 5 a.m. I was like, you should go to bed. You should, it's late.
No, every time we were like, this is a bad idea normally, but we'll indulge on this one time, because this is
one
like
time.
Yeah, because it's rare to find that kind of conversation, and I feel like this like remains true. And even just like in this framework, I know like to an extent that's kind of a one-time thing, you know, like you don't get that kind of like first time like thrill.
Oh yeah, I think for context we should also add in, this was like the first legitimate conversation that you and I had.
This is actually true.
Like, business.
Yeah, no,
like,
we had like been in meetings. Yeah, the most that we had was like a minute like in a Zoom calls before everyone else joined in. Yeah, so this
is
like,
oh, what are you
like
doing with your gap year? And then it was like, oh hey, what do you think about the universe? Like we just jumped from one to the other very quickly.
It was like a proper conversation for like most, you know, for maybe like 7.5 hours of it.
Oh yeah.
And like during that time, like Ariel and Emily, they had their own thing going on where like they would shame each other for not sleeping, but you know, they both knew they weren't gonna sleep. And they just did this at hourly intervals the whole night.
Yeah.
Eventually, like, you know, the 5 a.m.-ness crept in, and I know my brain stopped working. I knew I was like just saying stupid things for the last like hour and a half, and I definitely had the thought. I was like, all right, this is gonna go one of two ways going forward, right? Either we wake up and we're friends, or we wake up and Natalie thinks I'm just like a crazy person and she will never talk to me again.
Yeah, I remember towards the last hour and a half of our conversation, we were talking about expensive meals and cheese sticks, and that was the main takeaways from that. I don't really remember much other than that. Like once we got towards 5 a.m., it was mainly. It was mainly about food.
Yeah, which is like, I don't know, another marker of like either comfort or just like tolerance and trying to get away in a comedian breakaway. I was so scared. I was actually so scared. But then the next morning, I saw your message. I was like, "Hello, friend," and I was like, so I was so relieved.
Worried.
I was like,
I was worried too. I was like, what if it was like 9 hours and then never again? Like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do about? You know so much about me.
Segment 6, appreciating intros, ads, and spy pixels.
I think we should do like a fake retroactive intro though. Like we should now be like, can we introduce each other? I feel like that'd be cool.
That would
you
be
know?
cool. That would be cool. What do
Yeah.
you want to do? It's it
I would
feels like
introduce
in
you.
science class when they're like, "Hey, you're gonna talk to your partner, and then you're gonna introduce each other to the class." That's how I introduced.
Yeah,
That's
they're
how I
cool
was
though. They
introduced to
build
my
engagement.
anatomy.
This is one of the
It's
things that like after like working at like working with teams, I've come to appreciate these like weird tricks that teachers use. I like appreciated them so much. It's like,
Yeah.
damn, these are such hard things to do. How do you like get people to engage? You know, and like these tricks are actually cool. It's like, damn, I can use these, and like these are things that we can do, and they sometimes they work really well. And then advertising is the other thing on that. Like before, yeah, I've met like lots of people in this like program that I'm in who are like, oh yeah, I like saw an ad, and that's how I like found out about it. And like before, I probably would have been like, yeah, and then they go like, yeah, it's normal, like everyone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like in my mind, I'm just like, damn. That's so cool, cause I've like been on the other side, you know. I've been part of a program and like done marketing work and like seen our like ad rollout and like struggled to get conversions, and I'm like, damn, it's a success story, it's a case study, it's so cool.
You're like, this is something I can look up to and learn from.
Yeah, and with security too, it's like, you know, people talk about like Facebook privacy concerns. Meanwhile, I'm here, like the marketing person is like, hey, add this Facebook spy pixel to your to the website, and it's literally called the Facebook pixel. Before I heard about spy pixels, right? I was like, yeah, they seem like a generally kind of sketchy thing, but like here it is staring right at me. Here's a Facebook pixel that I am putting into this website, and it's like, damn,
Like,
it's
look
so
at that.
interesting. Yeah. I don't know. It's so when you see just a little bit more of the world, and then your like worldview, your perspectives expand by a lot.
Saving the grain of your
Segment
golden
7,
domain
sponsored by the
without
Incandescent
even
Review.
reasoning why. The crows seem to know
Not
and
actually.
lead them
We're
to
not
go,
getting paid
igniting
anything.
a spark in their minds so they circle and fly.
I love that you know the level of honesty we have here. We were desperate. We were desperate for looking for people to join. I gotta, okay, you know what? Here's my bit of honesty. I was genuinely so scared to apply that I almost didn't. Like, I was so terrified because I was like, oh god, I have to fill out a Google form about like why I want to be here. What if they don't think it's cool enough? And then when I got an email from you, I was like, oh god, okay, I've got to be a business professional. I am a writer. I am a poet. I am a connoisseur, and I have to be smart, and I have to talk like I am in academia at all hours of the day. Yeah, I was so scared.
Have I told you about like my application story?
No, tell me.
Okay, yeah. So for me, I was just chilling on Instagram, and then Emily posts these like starts spamming stories about this magazine, and telling people to submit, and I was like, wow, cool. I have all these things that I wanted to write about and never found the motivation to. Let me write a thing. So I wrote this like 6,000 word essay. No, it wasn't 6,000. It was definitely not 6,000. It was like 2,000. Because the submission guidelines were like no more than 6 pages, right? So I was like, all right, lit.
Okay, cool.
6 pages.
I can do that. 6 pages
So
exactly.
this is literally 3 days because I'm actually like so bad at outputting certain types of like writing content. I spent like 3 whole days doing it, like submit it like just in time for the deadline. I was like, all right. Well, okay, like, will this get published? I have no idea. And then I text Emily, and she's like, yeah, I have no idea. I was like, what? And then, yeah, so, but after I submitted, so I submitted it, right? And I was just on the website, and I see, like, the join us button, and I click into it, and I see, you know, the application forms, right? I'm like, damn, maybe I should join, maybe I should apply. You know, I may as well. It seems like a cool thing, right? So I fill out all of the forms. And at that time, there was not one Google form. There were multiple Wix forms for each position, and having done like media stuff and having just like been a general like writing person who was like not even like a specialized writer, I just applied to everything, right?
Yeah.
You know, like it'll get processed, it'll be in the pile, like at what they'll either reach out to me or not, whatever. And then like an hour later, Emily texts me and she's like, "Hey, can you fill out the right portal?" And then she sent me a screenshot, right? She sent me this she sent me this screenshot of her like text messaging with Ariel. And where Ariel's just like, who is this kid that submitted 5 things? And I'm like, what have I done? What have I done?
Oh no!
So I was like, oh my god. I was like, I've just destroyed all chances of being a part of this magazine. I've destroyed all chances of my work getting published.
Who's this kid?
Yeah, but then I went through and filled out the Google form anyways, and eventually Ocean in all his glory emailed me and was like, "Hey, join the critical writing team." And I was like, "Oh my god!" And I had still had no idea what to expect. I was like, this is gonna be so tough, but I'm like, I'm ready for a challenge. Like that's why I wanted to join a literary magazine as a previously unproven wannabe literary person. So whatever I joined, and it was just very good vibes from then on. Ocean was amazing. I had a lot of getting used to the position hierarchy or lack thereof. Where there were so many positions, there were so many random applications going out, and it was just I had to process that this was disconnected from the actual people and the actual power and relationships that people had. Even whatever people's titles were, they were just, everyone was kind of just a member of the magazine, or at most, or not at most, but primarily a member of the specific team was kind of the only divide. There's a vibe, people drop in and out of the exec board a good amount, which is very different from other organizations I've been a part of. But yeah, since then it's just Ariel has built just so strong of a positive, of a good vibes culture throughout this magazine that yeah, it was just such a good time.
Shame
Segment
how
8,
nobody
Stream of
knows.
Masochistic Consciousness.
He who wonders if you are to blame.
At the very least, we need an outro, which we will film directly after recording the intro. Can you imagine?
we filmed the content and then the intro and then
Welcome
the outro.
to the
and then
first
order.
episode of our podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Have a wonderful day.
Well, you know what? We just say screw it to the editing. We just posted this and we're like, hey,
Oh yeah.
go listen to the intro in the middle of the podcast. Here's a timestamp.
It's avant-garde, bro. It's avant-garde.
it's
You just gotta skip around. We're just playing with the concept of time.
It's experimental. I mean, quarantine is all about playing with the concept of time. So
Oh,
I
yes.
think that we're just topical.
We're
An avant-garde
experimental
podcast.
pieces, yeah.
It's a stream of consciousness podcast because we just say
Oh
what
god,
we're
oh
thinking.
god, oh god. Oh my god, Ulysses. Oh. Bro, you should read Ulysses. This is
Okay, I will strictly because of you.
I don't think any single person is has nearly enough energy to get someone to read Ulysses. That's just it's a monumental task. But because it was such a monumental task, it is just so, it's not even frequently on my mind, because it's not. It's a niche experimental heavy book that does not even have normal book content, but it's so big. It's when it comes up, it's just it's
It's everything.
fills everything up. Yeah, no, but when you were talking stream of consciousness podcast, I was just went straight to Ulysses. You don't know what experimental stream of consciousness means until you read Ulysses.
You don't know what it means until you've experienced it like this. It's oh my god, it just makes me think of William Faulkner's As I Lay Dying, and I read that book on an airplane, and oh my god, I wanted to throw it out a window. I was so mad. I was so mad. There was talk about fish, there was talk about a dead mother, and then a horse. And apparently, according to the reading guide, I was supposed to get some biblical something out of it. And I was like, where? I was sitting next to my NASA mentor on the plane. It was the first, okay, also it was the first time I've ever been on a plane. We're talking about me doing slam poetry and a bunch of other stuff, because I'm one of the few artsy kids on this weird science field trip. I've got this book on my lap and I'm reading and I'm stressed because I don't know how airplanes work and I don't know etiquette on airplanes. I don't know anything about airplanes because I had never been on one. And the whole time I'm getting more and more stressed because I'm reading this book. It's only 200 pages and it's making less and less sense as there are more pages added. And I just don't, I didn't... I don't like that book. I don't like that book. I will give Ulysses a chance. I will give it a chance. I will read it. I will consume all of the knowledge that my brain is capable of consuming. But I will let you know that I already have a very sour taste in my tongue from the only other piece of stream of consciousness I've ever read.
I feel you have to go into this expecting not to understand it. Definitely some parts, every part. There are two characters, right? There's this one, Leopold Bloom, who is the everyman, but intensified to the point of your brain blowing up. And then there's Stephen Dedalus, who is autobiographical, but he's just all of Joyce's big brainness stuffed into a character and his stream of consciousness thoughts, which are like probably not lesser than Joyce's over the course of his time writing the book. And it's just so much. Like Joyce has a quote. He's like, I've stuffed so many enigmas into this book that it will like keep professors occupied for centuries. It's not that, you know, when you were talking about like, you know, like all these, you're supposed to get like a biblical allusion from like all these like disparate things. In Joyce, it's just like every single word is an allusion. It's not hidden, it's just not explained whatsoever, but every single line is just like, it's an allusion. And in multiple chapters, you need to understand a good chunk of them to understand the chapter, but he just gives you no aid. It just exists. It's just there. What I was gonna say is Virginia Woolf stopped at 200 pages, so best of luck.
Segment 9, Superhuman spied into conversation about gender that could really be its own episode.
See, at this point, it's more so like I have to now read it out of like spite, not spite for you, but like spite for literature itself. Like, I'm not like a spiteful person in the sense that like I want to like do bad things to people. And if someone tells me I can't, and they follow it up with like, this generally come up because people have told me I can't do things because I'm a girl, then I have to prove them wrong. Like just so that I feel content with myself. I have to be like, no. Or if something happens and I just see this like very big mystery and people are like, oh, it can never be solved, or like, oh, there's just so much to it. Like I then want to devote all of my waking hours to doing just that until I've completed it, because then it's like I did it. Like I don't know, it's just this weird sense of like self-satisfaction. On a much smaller scale, a couple of years ago, like, we had our Christmas tree up. We have a board game room, and it shares this wall right in front of me. Well, we put the Christmas tree in it, so then the cats don't mess with it. We keep it in there, and it was not, like, it's 7 feet tall, and it's really heavy, and we couldn't get it apart. And so my dad walks into the game room, and he goes, hey, Natalie, I was sitting there, like, struggling with the tree, and he's like, you can't get that apart because you're a girl. And I immediately tore it in half and put it in the box. Like, I ripped it and I shoved it in, and I was like, and I mean, it's impressive. God. I get, like, superhuman strength when someone tells me no. Like, I've moved entire pianos on my own because someone was like, oh, we need a big, strong boy in the choir class to help. I was like, no, you don't. You need me.
This is like high-key me the other way, which is a very different set of like social constructions. But I just remember like I was in like this like math, like competition math class or something, and like somebody needed like a pencil, and then the teacher was like, yeah, probably like ask a girl, like probably like girls will always have like pencil cases and stationery, right? I was so proud when I took out my pencil case with all my pencils, and I was like, bang, here's your pencil.
That's so pure. That's so pure. You're just like, no, get that gender normative stuff out of here. I have the pencils here. I love that. I think we could have a whole podcast just on like, I don't know, the little victories that we have of doing things outside of what is generally expected in terms of like the performative part of gender. In 8th grade, like, I had this whole thing where I thought I was gender fluid, and I was essentially changing the label I had on my gender, like, every week. When, in all actuality, I realized I am a female. I just like to wear dudes' clothes sometimes. And, like, I don't want to be judged for that, and I don't want to be shunned for that, because I can also be incredibly hyper-feminine, and I'm equally as happy, and I'm equally as myself. But, growing up in Little Utah, that was not really something that was very accepted. Part of my reassurance of my gender, or like, the performance I was putting on for people was, like, hearing them validate me, and hearing them say, oh yeah, like, you look like a boy today. Even if they want to stray away from those expectations, even if that's, like, your intention, I feel like it kind of loops back to that in the end, which is kind of, sad. I feel like there's just way too much pressure, even today, still put on, like, gender roles and stuff, because, like, I just want to do what I want to do. Like, I don't really... There's not this... It's not because I'm a girl. Or it's just, like, I want to do it because I want to do it. I've had this conversation with my mom, and I'm like, yo, if I was a boy, I think I'd be a pretty similar person to who I am now. Like, obviously, a couple changes. But, like, I don't think at my core I would be any different.
Okay.
Which is, it's a very weird thing to think about, because, like, obviously, you'd be socialized in, like, a completely different way. But I just feel like I would still be who I am, because I definitely feel it.
Would you wanna die? How I wonder ever.
That's it for the first episode of 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., a podcast by Samson Jung. Natalie Ryan, and a text-to-speech bot that does all the actual work.
The windows.
Tune in again next week for discussions about whatever we decide to talk about.